Welcome to Epic Begins with One Step Forward, the podcast that reveals how to plan, achieve, and enjoy the journey of creating epic results in your life, business, health, and relationships. Here's your host, best-selling author and motivational speaker, Zander Sprague.
Hello, epic people, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward. I'm your host, Zander Sprague, and today I am honored to be joined by Alan Lazaros. Alan, tell us a little about yourself and what you do.
Okay, so I'm going to try to condense 35 years into a couple minutes here.
Okay.
So the first thing I want to say is thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. 9 years ago, I started listening to podcasts, and they definitely helped me change the trajectory of my life. So I do not take it lightly to be here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm here to serve, number one. I'm here to practice my craft, number two. So thank you for the opportunity. As far as me, I often joke, I say I'm hoping to hit puberty at 36 because I look very young. And the other thing I want to say is back when I used to listen to podcasts, I would hear people like me now tell their stories. And it seemed like they had it all figured out. And it seemed like they had the narrative done well and the story arc structure. And it felt like they had their whole life figured out. And now I've become one of those after many, many years of speaking, podcasting, training, and coaching. And I want to make it very, very clear that while it seems like I have it all figured out, I definitely don't. And I definitely didn't back while these things were happening. Okay. So, but I've since rewatched the movie of my own life. I've been doing a lot of therapy in my 30s. And when you watch an old movie again, you realize things that you didn't realize before. You have new distinctions. You understand jokes you never understood. So picture a movie that you saw as a kid and then you rewatch it now and you go, oh, got it. Okay. So in rewatching the movie of my own life, I now kind of get it. Not fully, obviously, because I'm getting older and wiser as I go, but much better than I used to. Okay, so my story starts in definite adversity. When I was 2 years old, my father passed away in a car accident when he was 28 years old.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. So Father's Day was actually 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And my business partner and I both grew up without fathers, actually. And we have a charity that we host called the Next Level Hope Foundation. And so we get together every Father's Day with a group of kids and we rent out a gym of other single parents. And it's been really cool. So we've turned tragedy into triumph a little bit there, which is good. But anyways, so he was 28 years old. His name is John McCorkle. And so my real last name is actually McCorkle. And so my birth father was John, and he was a part of a big Irish Catholic family. Uh-huh. And so my mom and papa, my grandma and grandpa, his mom and dad, had 6 kids. Mm-hmm. It was Jim, Joe, John, Jane, Joan, Jeanette. So there was 6 J's, big Irish Catholic family. So my father passed away when I was 2. I had an older sister who was 6. My mother was 31 at the time. My mother was a stay-at-home mom at the time. And then my stepdad came into the picture. I had a stepfather named Steve Lazaros from the age of 3 to 14. Mm-hmm. I now playfully refer to this part of my life as boats and BS. And we had motorcycles and snowmobiles, and we grew up on a small lake, and we went on ski trips. And it was also the late 90s, early 2000s, .com bubble type of thing. He worked for a company called AGFA, and AGFA did hospital computers. So we did very well. He did very well financially. And everyone kind of did in the 90s, let's be honest, right? I mean, at least in the US. Okay. So it was definitely a pleasure-centered, have as much fun as possible, make as much money as possible paradigm. And so when he left when I was 14 years old, not only did he take 90% of the income with him, but he also took his entire extended family with him. Mm-hmm. I have since, now I'm 35, like I said, and I have not seen a single one of them, including him, since I was 14. So Grandma Joan, Grandpa George, uncles, aunts, all that, gone, all of them. Okay. Now, didn't understand this at the time. 14 was the hardest year of my life. At 14, that same time, my mom and my Aunt Sandy, her sister, got in a fight. And my aunt sort of ostracized us from her side of the family around that same time. At that same time, my sister moves out with her older boyfriend. Understandable. So kind of, and again, I did not understand this until my 30s. I kind of lost 3 families by the time I'm 14 years old.
Sure. Yeah. That's
Now,
challenging.
fortunately, the McCorkles, my birth father's side, welcomed us back with open arms. And
Mhm.
but while while my mom and stepdad were together, we kind of didn't associate much with the McCorkles because we were trying to be the Lazarus's, so to speak.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. And so, anyways, not only did he take his entire extended family with him, but 90% of the income too. So I went from Xbox,
Mhm.
Dreamcast, upper middle class.
Mhm.
Can't wait to go to my dream college, Worcester Polytechnic Institute, which was 50 grand a year to try to
Mhm.
be an engineer,
Mhm.
to now I get free lunch at school because our income is so low.
Sure.
I'm shopping at Salvation Army. My mom traded in her BMW for a little Honda Civic, and we
Sure.
just did whatever we had to do. And so fast forward, I did the only thing in hindsight that I now understand is actually a trauma response. And it's the only thing I knew how to do when things got rough.
Mhm.
My trauma response was work harder, aim higher, get smarter.
Sure.
And as far as trauma responses go, I now realize in hindsight that's a really good one,
Mhm.
because a lot of people would not do that. So, anyways, I got straight A's through high school. I got what's called the President's Award. It's actually behind me. It's signed by George W. Bush.
Sure.
And basically that means you get all A's through all 4 report cards, all of high school. And then I got tons of financial aid and scholarships. So I was able to go. I got into my dream college. I became a computer engineer, which was brutal. And then I got my master's in business and I went off into corporate.
Yep.
So now I'm in my early 20s. I paid off 84 grand worth of debt in a single year. I had $150,000 in an investment account for Vanguard. I bought a 2004 Volkswagen Passat for $5 grand cash. Thank you, Volkswagen, because they ended up saving my life, which I'm getting to. And I was off to the races. I went from 65 a year. So I went from broke all through high school and college to 65 a year to 85, from 85 to 105, from 105 to 125, 125 to almost 180.
Sure.
I worked for a bunch of different companies. iRobot, Sensata Technologies, which used to be Texas Instruments, Tyco Safety Products, Simplex Grinnell, a company called Lens Americas, all these different companies. I eventually landed at a company called Cognex.
Mm-hmm.
Cognex is an industrial automation company that sells industrial automation equipment, machine vision equipment into manufacturing facilities all across the world. And my territory, so I did an inside sales engineering team, then I got promoted to outside sales. Outside sales, I managed Vermont, Connecticut, and Western Massachusetts. Okay. I was on the road. So at this point, I'm in my early 20s. I'm making more money than I could possibly need. I have a beautiful girlfriend, tons of high school friends, college friends, corporate friends. Still lots of partying, still lots of fun, this time lots of money.
Sure.
But deeply unfulfilled. Very successful, but not fulfilled at all and didn't really know it.
Right.
I'm in New Hampshire with my little cousin. We're not drinking or doing anything crazy. We're playing Call of Duty. We go to TGI Fridays. It's a dark winter night, 2015. I'm driving my 2000. What'd you say?
What part of New Hampshire?
I don't know if I know exactly.
All right, no, that's fine.
Probably near Manchester.
I'm from New England originally, so and I went to college. I went to high school in New Hampshire, so I'm like, oh, were you in the Concord, Manchester area?
I would say Manchester.
Okay.
Yeah, most likely. Again, I wasn't big on. So I live in Massachusetts.
Okay.
And so yeah, my cousins, they live in New Hampshire, but I don't know exactly where. Yeah.
All right,
I'm a millennial. I just follow the GPS, right?
Okay.
You know the deal.
Okay,
you know the deal.
No worries.
Yeah. So I actually have a car that drives itself now. I'm pumped. But anyways, so typical millennial, right? It's hilarious. So, well, it's by that building. Like, no, the millennials shut off the moment you talk about geography because we never had to know, We never used a map.
Trust me, I know. I'm older than you, but yes, I definitely know.
Yeah.
I'd like to put a millennial in a car with a map and go, you got to get yourself from point A to point B. You figure it out. There's no voice.
Yeah. There's no GPS.
You need to take a left.
Yeah. 100%. So anyways, I was driving to TGI Fridays, not drinking, not partying, nothing like that. The signs were covered because the snowbanks were so bad that New Hampshire, there's a ton of snow, right? And this is 2015, really bad winter. So I was supposed to yield. I didn't. I end up on the wrong side of the road. I look up and I see what I thought was a Mack truck.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, computer engineering brain was, this is it. That's the end. There's no possibility that this isn't the end.
Sure.
And fortunately, it was not a Mack truck. So two things saved my life. Number one, it wasn't a Mack truck. It was a lift-kitted pickup truck.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those up in New Hampshire.
Yes, there are.
Yes, there are. And they were not happy with me. But anyways, the second thing that saved my life is the 2004 Volkswagen Passat that I bought in $5,000 cash because I wanted to invest all my money. I decided, and again, I used to not share this because I was too much of a coward. I decided very young to be very wealthy. And I know that sounds cocky, but I just was a math guy. Yeah. And thank you. I appreciate it. But most people make that sound like, well, that sounds a little too simple. But anyways, so I just invested all my capital. All of it. I mean, like almost all of it. So I was driving a 2004 Volkswagen Passat. Thank goodness. I used to call this car the tank.
Mm-hmm.
German engineered steel trap of a car.
Yep.
And it saved my life. Both airbags deployed. My little cousin hurt his knee on the airbag. I hurt my face in the airbag. So physically, we are okay.
Sure.
Now, my dad died in a car accident when he was 28.
Right.
I've seen pictures of his car. My car doesn't look very different. So
Right.
physically I'm okay, but this was my quarter life existential crisis. Like, what was the point? Filled with regret, reflecting on my entire life, all my choices, drink too much too often. What did it all mean? Am I proud of who I've become? You name it.
Sure.
What is the point? What is the meaning? And the truth is, and this is the way I describe it now, again, in hindsight, and I'll wrap up here in a second. Bucket one, and this is the people that come to me now for business coaching. Bucket one is where I was. Very successful, but deeply unfulfilled and didn't know it.
Mm-hmm.
After the car accident, I became acutely aware that I was wildly unfulfilled.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily less fulfilled than anyone else, to be honest, which is sad to say, but way less fulfilled than I am now.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely not in alignment as much as I thought. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
The second bucket is deeply fulfilled, but unsuccessful. So I
Right.
went all the way past broke after that. I started my own company. I was super aligned. I went all in on self-improvement and personal development, but I went broke. And now here I am 9 years later, and now I'm both successful and fulfilled. And again, successful is relative, but I've finally surpassed my old best in terms of success. But I found out that success without fulfillment is definitely something that sucks. But it turns out fulfillment without success also does suck. And that's just my truth, because you don't have the income to sustain any sort of quality of life. And so I want to help people now. And this is what I do. I help people go from bucket one to bucket two and bucket two to bucket three. And bucket three is successful and fulfilled. And so very last thing is, prior to the car accident at 26, I was professionally developed, resume, cover letter. I had competence, courage. I shot for the moon. I was achievement oriented and I was improvement oriented, but I wasn't self-improvement oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't personal development oriented. I didn't look at self. I expanded in every outward direction and I had external results to the wind, but I didn't self-improve as much as I do now. And so now I flip the script and I do both. And I think it's important to be both professionally developed and personally developed. And I, quite frankly, see very few people who are doing both. And I understand why, because I wasn't either.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And I mean, thank you for your honesty and sharing all of that, Alan. Certainly a lot. One of the themes in my book is what I call the epic unexpected. So certainly losing your dad at such a young age, very traumatic. I guess, for lack of a better term, losing a person who you most likely saw as a father figure, Mr. Lazaros, very traumatic. And obviously having a big car accident, absolutely. Funny thing, I'm originally from Boston. I live in California now, but I was living back in Boston. And I too was driving a Passat. I did not hit someone head on, but I was rear-ended at a high rate of speed. And aside from a few scrapes and some sore muscles, walked away just fine.
Way to go, Volkswagen.
Exactly. Say
I'm
what you will
telling
about
you.
Volkswagen.
Yeah.
You're right. And the Passat is a rolling tank. So
It
yes,
is. Yeah, it was really thank you, Volkswagen. I always felt really safe in that car. Had
exactly.
I been in like a little Honda or something, and again,
Oh
this is
yeah,
nothing against Honda, I just know it wouldn't have
yeah,
been the same, right? And so we have a Tesla now that I adore because it's such a heavy vehicle.
sure,
It's just a really safe, heavy vehicle. Yeah.
definitely. So, but speaking of the epic unexpected and how it changes your trajectory there, uh, I'm going to guess that although you may not have had much physical uh, trauma from that, there was a fair amount of mental trauma
Definitely.
from
Mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So physically, those are the four modalities, I think: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual.
Mhm.
And physically, I was okay, but
Mhm.
mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, not even a little bit. I
Right.
mean, talk about the metaphorical phoenix burning down from the ashes. Every part of my ego, which is just your identity, completely burns down. And
Sure.
so you're faced with all the truth at once. And so the epic unexpected thing that you're referring to, a lot of times those are the humble pie moments that transform us
Hmm.
and they wake us up. And that was my wake up call. And I'm glad I got it young because I know a lot of people now that didn't get it until way later.
Abs-
But I'm grateful that I was okay because some people don't get the second chance. Like I got the second chance my dad never got to
sure.
change his life. And so mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, there was a lot of reflection. There was a lot of pain. I was claustrophobic. Double yellow lines scared the hell out of me. It took me a while to get back in cars. Like it was a lot of growth and it was a lot of what I call post-traumatic growth or what is called post-traumatic growth. But there was also a lot of PTSD stuff with just cars and stuff like that as well. So
Absolutely. And I'm of many things. I'm also a licensed professional clinical counselor, so mental health
nice.
professional. So and I do talk a lot about uh, grief, loss, trauma, stuff like that. So if it makes you feel any better, I'm sure I don't need to tell you this. Yeah, all of that being scared of being in the car. Um,
Yep. Of
every,
course.
uh, Being that you live in a wintry place, when it snows, when you see snowbanks, you absolutely.
Yep.
Um, I absolutely get that. After I was rear-ended, I too was like, oh my gosh, is
Yep.
that car going to hit me? Am I going to be? And I always say that part of what gets you through that is sort of that um, just exposure. Like the way you get over it is you have to get in the car, you have to go down the road. Um,
Exposure therapy.
exactly. And that is part of that post-traumatic growth, is to say, yes, this does scare me. I acknowledge it. I feel that. However, in order for me to have a sense of normalcy, I need to just keep exposing myself to this so that I then have enough proof that I am okay to drive down the road. That
100%.
and so that in vivo exposure of, like, just keep getting repeatedly exposed until not only your brain but your somatic system
Mm-hmm.
in your body goes, oh, I don't need to have that fight or flight response all the time. But
Yep.
it's not easy. I absolutely get it.
Yeah.
In October of 2022, I had a wonderful crash on my mountain bike and shattered my shoulder and broke my humerus and fractured my
Uh,
pelvis, but I'm back on my road bike. I haven't gotten on the mountain bike, not because I'm scared. I just haven't gotten back on it yet, but I don't feel that I'm afraid to get back on it. I just am
yeah.
like, I prefer not to do that right now, but I will
Mm-hmm.
get on it soon, just because I'm like, I want to prove to myself that yes, I can get on the bike, I can ride it down a hill, and I will be okay.
Well, there's the philosophical question of life, right? Life has risks, and what are we going to do? Huddle in a corner and stay stuck for the rest of our life?
Absolutely.
And fear is valid, and fear sometimes is connected to actual danger and actual risk, but most of the time it's not.
Right.
And so a lot of people, it's so funny. A lot of people, and this is just a simple example, I'm hyper rational. So I'm a computer engineer. There's 4 modalities of thinking. I just want to give your listeners this because otherwise they might not resonate with a lot of things I say, and I understand why. I used to think I was a strong communicator. Now I understand I'm a strong communicator to other engineers. Yeah. So anyways, the 4 modalities of thinking are rationality, logic, mathematics, numbers. That's number 1. It's the rarest. Most people don't think in that. Then the second one is pictures, images.
Mm-hmm.
The third is words and concepts. That's the most common by far, words and concepts. So when I say dog, you either see a dog or have conversations in your head about dogs. And then the fourth one is energy. That's also pretty rare. Mm-hmm. And that's more intuition, energetic, somatic expression, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
And so I'm math first by far. I mean, we all have all 4, obviously, but we all have a big one. And so mine is math. And so from a hyper rational standpoint, this is an example that I think will land is when you're in the ocean, everyone is somewhat scared a little bit of sharks. But yet when you look it up, 338 million people in the US, only 1 shark death per year.
Right.
But yet you get in your car every day, 40,000 deaths per year. Yeah. I think it's 38 now. But the point is that, before a trip on an airplane, everyone, I find this so fast, like, safe travels. Airplanes, statistically speaking, are like, 10,000 times safer than cars?
Absolutely. The redundancy in an airplane.
Yeah,
I was just 100%. Going to say that.
And so
so much less likely than a
right.
car.
My beautiful girlfriend, when she travels and she's about to go on a plane, I said, don't ever take this personally, but I'm never concerned about the plane. I'm only ever concerned when you get in a car. Right. And even I always say drive safe. I never say fly safe. You're fine. But again, that's the mathematics. So my point of all that, rather than just talking about myself, is most human beings are I used to think everyone was irrational and lazy. Mm-hmm. And I was young and I was naive and probably ignorant and arrogant. And it turns out not everyone's irrational and lazy. I'm really hardworking and really hyper rational. Mm-hmm. And so to your PTSD stuff and all the therapy work and exposure therapy, most of that stuff, yes, something bad happened to me. But double yellow lines are not necessarily any more or less dangerous than before the accident. Sure. You're not any more or less likely to get rear-ended again. It just feels like you're much more likely to. And so we all have to kind of assess risk more accurately and then decide, listen, there's a possibility every time you get in a car, something bad could happen. But are you never going to drive again? There's pros and cons to everything. And I think most of us hold ourselves back due to fear that most of it is irrational. Not all of it. Not all of it's irrational. Fear is there for a reason. It's there to protect you. But false expectations appearing real, FEAR. A lot of people are just afraid of things. And the last thing I'll say about this too is I used to think, okay. A lot of the advice in this motivational self-improvement space is like, well, you got to face your fears. You got to be courageous and all this stuff. I didn't understand my fear, so I didn't understand where I needed courage. I was what I now refer to as a social coward.
Sure.
I was always courageous in applying to the job, applying to the school, writing the resume, doing the cover letter, doing the essay, submitting the thing, doing the marathon, whatever it was. That's all fine for me. I don't struggle a ton with self-doubt when it comes to competence. And I know a lot of people won't resonate with that. Where I struggled was socially. I always felt awkward. I always felt unrelatable. I always felt unlikable. I never felt like I fit in naturally. I always felt like I had to mold myself to the room. And I now realize, statistically speaking, I'm on a very far end of the bell curve. And so I had low self-worth because I never felt lovable and likable. And so for me, I had social cowardice. I didn't have competence cowardice at all.
Sure.
And other people are the opposite. Most people struggle to like apply to the job and apply to the school and go for the thing and that kind of thing. But they are easily likable and fit in very easily. And then some people have both. And so there's 2 types of courage. There's competence courage, which is I can go do this thing. I'm going to go accomplish this thing. I'm going to go get good at this thing. And there's social courage, which I'm going to stand up for myself. I'm going to stand up for what I believe in. I'm going to stand up to the bully. I'm going to set and honor clear boundaries. I'm going to invest in myself. I'm going to keep the promises I make to myself, particularly when I'm in peer pressure moments. So I was very much a social coward, not at all a competence coward. And I hope your listeners can identify which one you're more of.
Absolutely. And I'm smiling, Alan, because I just off of what you were saying, I'm like, well, I'm kind of strong in both, and maybe, and I'll tell you this story. I've always had a what some people see as a ridiculous belief in myself that I can do anything, and I've had jobs that I honestly had no right getting, in part because of the social. I'm a social person. I love to talk. I'm able to woo people, right? I figured that part out. But I also have that confidence that yes, I can do anything. And the super quick story is, and I still to this day don't understand how I got hired for this job, but I got hired to work on a Unix help desk at Fidelity Investments.
Nice.
In the interview, I did not know what Unix was. When they asked me, I said, it's two emasculated men from Rome, i.e. eunuch, a eunuch.
Yeah.
But a plural would be eunuchs. I honestly, and I got hired. And the thing that blows my mind now when I look back, I'm on the help desk, so that implies that not only do I know it, but I know it enough to help other people.
Yeah.
And there was like about 2 months of fire hose learning where I literally had Unix for dummies, and I'm like trying to figure out how to write command line code and how Unix works and stuff. But I'm again, that belief I could do anything. Sure, I can do that, right? And I've done that throughout my career and done jobs. And again, if you told me I majored in history and psychology and I spent 22 years in tech.
Nice.
I was a software engineer, I was a quality assurance engineer, I was a Unix help desk person. Now I can tell you, as a software engineer, I worked incredibly hard to be mediocre, and that's why I don't do it anymore, because I wanted more. And my brain doesn't work like your brain does. I'm like, oh, I have a problem. Let me go over and talk to Alan and find out how his weekend was. I'm dealing with lots of people who social is not, and I'm not trying to pigeonhole, but conversation was not necessary. I talked to him about code and tech and math and all of that all day long. But hey, what'd you do this weekend? And did you see that movie yet? Or whatever. No, they would look at me like, what are you doing? So I get that. No, I totally, that does totally resonate with me. So here's a question I love to ask all my guests. I think two of the most powerful words that we have are not yet. Because not yet opens up so many possibilities, and there are so many not yets. I see, and you mentioned, I see in the background on your wall, but you also mentioned that you ran a marathon, or at least one. I too have done that. So I'm like, oh, right on.
Nice.
And obviously, running a marathon, there's a lot of not yet. Have you run your race yet? Have you done your marathon? Not yet. Why? Because it's not, the date hasn't come. I'm still training, right? But my question for you is, what are one or two of your not yets?
One or two, that would be hard to pick.
Okay, well, then give me some of your not yets. I don't.
Okay, not yet. I like not yet. The one thing I want to share too, that I think is really important, and again, I'm not just a talking head, so please, I have a 10,000 hour tracker, and I track these things. I track podcasting, speaking, coaching, and training.
Okay.
Those are my big four. And then I do writing, but I don't track it.
Sure.
So I have 18 blogs, so I guess I do track it. But the 10,000 hour tracker doesn't include writing.
Right.
And so I have 26 people on my roster right now, business coaching. The youngest is 16, actually. I used to say 18. I just got a 16-year-old, which is cool. And my oldest is 63. All different countries, all different backgrounds, all different industries, all different modalities of thinking. It's been so cool to learn from these people all over the world and to learn their businesses and their currencies and their processes and their beliefs and their awareness and their culture. It's been really cool. So I'm not just saying this. I have so much data up here of different types of people from all over the world that I can say some things with absolute certainty at this stage. Empirical evidence is there. One thing that I will say is that if you and I have very high self-belief, which in psychology is known as self-efficacy, the people who don't, that are listening, will be triggered by us, most likely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And because you make it sound so easy. And so do I, by the way. Yeah. So like I did a marathon within 3 days notice without training at all.
I did not do that, but congratulations.
Thank you. And I did it alone on a track with only my girlfriend.
Okay.
And I carried my phone the entire 106 times around the track. And it was in 95-degree weather in the middle of the day.
Wow.
Now, the reason why I say that is because I search for humble pie. And I didn't used to. So prior to 26, I didn't understand this, but I was fairly arrogant. And here's why. Every strength comes with a weakness. So if you have really high self-belief, you struggle with humility. So you say, I can do anything. The truth is you can't. No, right? You can't beat LeBron James at basketball. You can't, have a bigger business than Elon Musk. You can't, right? And that's all true.
Boston Marathon.
Right, exactly. And certainly not tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
But generally speaking, you believe in yourself more than the statistical norm. Okay.
Yes,
and you also probably walk your talk pretty well, all things considered. And same with me. For people out there who struggle with self-doubt, you and I don't resonate as much with them. But what we might resonate with is, listen, if you have self-doubt and you struggle with self-doubt, self-belief is where you need to start. And the way you build it is a formula. It's state, prove, self-assign. So you say, hey, I'm going to do a marathon. Then you prove to yourself you can do it. And then after you do it, see, I did that. But this is an unconscious process. Most people are drifting around without stating, proving, and self-assigning. So they end up a good baseball player, or they end up a good basketball player, or they end up at some job, but they stumbled upon it, so they don't self-assign it.
Right.
There's so many emotionally driven people that don't self-assign the identity of I chose to do that. Most people stumble upon success and then don't self-assign it, and they think they got lucky. So I wanted to give that to most people. Now, the second side of this coin that most people who do have high self-belief struggle with, and this was me, I don't think it is you, but I think it's me, is I had low self-worth. Low self-worth. So self-belief is I believe I can build it. I believe I can build the castle. I know I can do it. Give me enough time and enough resources and I can do this. And if I don't have the resources, I can get them. Okay, boom. That's self-belief. And I have that 10 out of 10. And I know that. Okay, and so do you. Almost to the point where it's too much. And that's interesting.
Probably.
Yeah, okay. And some of it's delusion, by the way, just calling it out. Okay. The second one is self-worth. Self-worth is I not only can build the castle, but I also deserve to live here. I've earned it. And I'm going to honor and protect the castle. Someone with low self-worth builds the castle, invites all their friends and family, and lets them spill beer all over the carpets.
Yeah.
Lets people mistreat them.
Yep.
And so self-belief and self-worth, those are the two. 10,000 hours. I think I'm just hit 8,000 on my way to 10,000.
Cool.
I'm telling you, the core of your being is the amount of self-belief you have and self-worth you have.
Absolutely.
And you can build them.
Absolutely.
But no one knows that's the root problem.
Right.
So we don't go to work on it.
Right.
Go ahead.
And what I say, I'm sure my podcast listeners are like, oh, here he goes again. But that's okay, because sometimes you have to hear things repeatedly to go, oh yes, okay, now I hear that, which is two things. First of all, the meanest person in our life is ourself, and I want people just to stop that. We shouldn't be so mean to ourselves. We say,
agreed.
We're so mean to ourselves in our head, right? The other thing is, I think oftentimes people, what I call the 97-3 rule, which is like on most days, 97% of your day has actually gone really well. and up to
Yeah.
3% doesn't go so well. And yet, what do we focus on? We focus on that 3%. And I really demonstrated this when I was doing my internship for my license. I was doing counseling for middle school and high school students.
Nice.
And I would ask them, a lot of them were having challenges with academics. So I would ask them, what's your least favorite subject? A lot of them said math. I know that's, you know, you're like,
my favorite.
how could math? But anyway.
Yeah.
And and to sort of demonstrate the point to them, I said, all right, how would you feel if you got a 97 on your next test? Oh my gosh, I'd be so excited. My parents would be so proud. I tell everyone I'd be so excited. I go, would you complain about the 3 points you didn't get? Are you kidding? I got a 97, right? I'm like, so if 97% of your day is going well, why are you focused on the 3% that didn't go so well? Now, yes, given days, that 3% could be a lot larger because, well, you get in a car accident.
Well, here's the problem. That 3% is the part that needs improvement. So it gets more focused.
Although look, we are going to fail.
Yeah,
that is
100%.
And everything is not going to go perfectly. And
of course,
you know, I talk about like Epic begins with one step forward, and it does.
Yeah.
You started your marathon by taking one step forward, left, right, repeat.
It started long before that by stating that I was going to try to do it. Absolutely. It started long before that by building belief when I was a kid, right? So everything's an accumulation, but even here's the problem. If you want to improve, you don't just have to look at what's good, you have to look at what's not. Even in intimate relationships, people like, well, why do you always bring up the things that are not good instead of being grateful for the things that are good? How do you hold the duality? Duality is such a powerful thing, and not everyone can hold duality. They think it's black or white when it's really both. And so duality is holding two seemingly opposing ideas in your consciousness simultaneously. So how do you hold the duality of I'm grateful for the 97% that has gone well, while simultaneously realizing you have to identify the 3% and improve it? Otherwise, you won't improve your life. And that's most people are one or the other. You're either overly positive and delusional, and it's called toxic positivity, or you're overly negative and stuck and mean to yourself and terrible self-talk. And so I try really hard to stay centered. And that's why it's so interesting. I have all these different clients. Some of them are delusionally positive, and some of them are delusionally negative. I'm just trying to bring them to accurate thinking. Like, you're not capable of everything. You tend to be more positive than most. And so, like, what's your center five is if you had a coach who was super hard on you, you'd be better off. But for some people who are so negative on themselves, you're actually a really bright, positive light that can help them tremendously, because that's what you think the world needs more of, which is positivity and constructive. But if you tell LeBron James, hey man, like, congratulations, you got 10 points. He's going to be like, dude, 10 points? Like that's not good for me. Sure. So don't be positive, right? So we all have to be hard on ourselves to the right amount. Absolutely. Based on our goals and our dreams and our standards and all that stuff. And so I remember I had a client one time who said, Alan, I want you to be as hard on me as you are on yourself. And I said, that's not constructive. Yeah. Because I'm only hard on myself to the extent that I'm ready for. Right. And I'm harder on myself now at 35 than I ever was at 7. Definitely. Right. And so that's kind of one of the last things. Yeah. Definitely. Well, Alan, this has been fascinating. We've really gone, we've gone long on this one, and that's great. It's been fascinating. I do want to thank you. How can people get a hold of you? I feel bad I never answered the not yet. That's my bad. The not yets for me are just trying to have my life become an amplified version of what it already is. I want to help more people achieve their goals and dreams in alignment with who they truly are, and most importantly, be more fulfilled. I don't want you to just be successful. I want you to be successful and fulfilled. And I've been working so hard my whole life to figure out how to help myself be successful and fulfilled. And I think that the real root underneath that is fulfilled people don't hurt people. I've been hurt a lot in my life. I dealt with bullying. Obviously, I lost 3 families by the time I'm 14 in some sense. And I just found fulfillment through all that adversity. A lot of people see me now and they think I was born on third base, when in reality, I couldn't even see the ballpark, to be completely honest. And I did have some advantages, so I appreciate those. But it wasn't 97.3 for me, I'll tell you what.
Yeah,
it was the opposite.
Definitely.
And you can do a lot with very little if you have the right mindset and you're hardworking and you're humble, and you lock in on your strengths. So if anyone wants help, please reach out. So in terms of reaching out, where can you find me? We have a website called nextleveluniverse.com. We have a 21-person team. We have 21 departments. That's actually not correlated. We have a charity for single parents. We have a monthly meetups. We do book club every week. We have a journal. We got all kinds of cool stuff. We have a group coaching program. We have one-on-one coaching. We have podcast coaching and business coaching and self-improvement. And we have a podcast called Next Level University.
Okay.
And it's level up your health, wealth, life, and love every day from anywhere on the planet, in your pocket, a mentor, completely free. And that's really what Next Level University is about, is if you want a bigger, better, brighter future and you are willing to put in the work and you're willing to learn, it's the mentor we wish we had in your pocket every day, completely free. I believe in equal opportunity. I was given financial aid and I wouldn't have been able to go to college if I didn't.
Sure.
And it was because I was in a country that invested in my brain, and I'm so grateful. And so I'm trying to do the same for other people. And you can do it. You can build a bigger, better, brighter future. No, you're not going to be an Olympic gold medalist at something you're not good at, but you will build a bigger, better, brighter future if you have a positive, more constructive mindset and you are consistently working toward your goals and dreams with mentors in your corner. So nextleveluniversity.com, nextleveluniverse.com, and then Next Level University podcast, those two different things. And thank you.
Well, Alan, thank you so much for being here. I want to remind my audience again that epic choices lead to the epic life that you want. And I will talk to you next time.
Get your gift copy of the award-winning book, Epic Begins with One Step Forward, at epicbegins.com. That's a wrap on this episode of Epic Begins with One Step Forward with your host, Zander Sprague, best-selling author, internationally acclaimed public speaker, and licensed professional clinical counselor. To make your next conference or event epic, send an email to Zander at zander@epicbegins.com. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Remember, epic choices, epic life.